Assalamu alaikum. My name is Haneef bin Salim, and I will be presenting about the first two switches on the left side of our network planning.
Before I start talking about the basic configuration of the switch, I'll first give an overview of the different devices used at the section where it is highlighted in green. So the different rooms are indicated by the red outline. Computer room 1 is indicated by the red outline here, and computer room 2 is indicated by this red outline here. So in computer room 1 we have a 2901 router. The 2901 router is connected to a 2960-240T switch using a copper straight through cable. The switch is also connected to 3 different computers, PC0, PC1, and PC2. They are also connected using copper straight through cables, though the switch is also connected to PC0 using a console cable, or it's connected via console connection for configuration. So the first router, router 5, is connected to the router in computer room 2. It is connected using a serial DCE connection, and the router in computer room 2, it's configured similarly to computer room 1 because they're both computer rooms. So the router is connected to a switch using a copper straight through cable. The switch is connected to 3 different computers, also using copper straight through cables, and between the switch and PC9 it also has a console connection.
So onto the first switch. The switch has a console connection from PC0 in our network plan. Now I will use the show running config command to show the running configuration of the switch. So first of all, this line here, it shows that there is password encryption service used in our switch configuration. The host name that we set for this switch is SW_CRoom1, where CRoom1 stands for computer room 1. In this next line, it shows that we have secure access to privileged exec mode, which means that the privileged exec mode is password protected using the enable secret command. This can be seen when I was typing the enable command. I was prompted to type in a password to access the privileged exec mode. So next, we have the IP address. We set the IP address 192.168.69.13 with the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So this is to remotely manage the switch through telnet or SSH, which is used for easy configuration or troubleshooting. This next line shows that this is our message of the day, or MOTB for short. This message will be shown during the user access verification, which was shown above here. So the next few lines show that there is secure access to the switch to console connection and virtual connection. This can be seen where line con 0 is password protected, and also line VTY from 0 until 15 is also password protected. And that is it for the first switch. Now we go to the next switch, which has a similar configuration as the switch in computer 1. So the next switch has a console connection from PC9 in our network plan. So now I will go to the terminal. In this switch, I'll use the show running config command again. So for this switch, we have password encryption service 2. The host name is SW_CRoom2, CRoom2 meaning computer room 2. We also have secure access to privileged exec mode using the enable secret command. So this switch is set with an IP address of 192.168.15.13 with a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0 for remote configuration. The same message of the day or MOTD has been set for this switch as in the switch mentioned before. And also, similar to the switch in computer room 1, we have a password protected console connection and password protected virtual connection. And that is it for the second switch. So next I welcome Brother Khairul Akmal to present.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Akmal bin Noormaizan, and today I'm going to present to you the basic configuration for switch on the right side, which is at the common room and multimedia room. So first up, I use for both switch I use 2960 model, and I connect to router and to end device with copper straight to cable. So without wasting time, I will show you my basic configuration for this code. So as you can see, we need to enter password to enter the switch, and I'll show running config. So this is my basic configuration for switch for common room. Okay, and as you can see, the host name is SW, which is switch for common room, and I also enable secret for this switch, so the password is encrypted. And move forward to IP address. I give the IP address for this switch, which is 192.168.21 and .3. And if the password is wrong, the banner will show the password is password. And also for line console 0, the password are also encrypted. And for line virtual 0 until 15 is also encrypted. So next up, let's see the multimedia room switch. I use the same basic configuration from the common room, but this is it to make it easier. So but the host name is switch mroom. Mroom is stand for multimedia room, and also I enable the password. I enable the secret password, which is it is encrypted. The password is encrypted. And for IP address for this one, I put 192.168.16.16, as the others are already taken 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 already taken by end device. Thus I put the switch for multimedia room is dot 16. And for the line console 0, the password is encrypted, and also same with the virtual line from 0 to 15. I think that's all for my part. I will pass to another presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohd Firdaus bin Shahrum, matrix number 2013803, and today I will present to you about the IP addressing of our book project. I will only talk about the addressing that is on the left hand side of this project, since the right hand side will be covered by Brother Amir. So as you can see here, there are two subnets or two rooms on the left hand side. The first one is computer room number 1, and the second one is computer room number 2. So let's talk about computer room number 1 first. So for computer room number 1, the network ID is 192.168.69.0, with the subnet mask being 255.255.255.0, which means we are using class C for this room. Why are we using class C? Since we know that class C have very limited hosts. We're using class C because as you can see here, we only have um, three PCs, so there won't be much problems about it. Unless we are using many PCs, then we have to use other class such as classless. So moving on, for this network, for the first PC, PC0, the IP address is 192.168.69.10. For PC1, it is 192.168.69.11, and for PC2, the IP address is 192.168.69.12. For switch 0, the IP address is 192.168.69.13. And for the interface for our router, which is also the default gateway for the subnet, it is set to 192.168.69.1. So I will show you the IP addressing on this laptop for this PC. First we take PC0, IP configuration, and as you can see, the IP address is just like I stated before, 192.168.69.10. Same goes to PC1, is 192.168.69.11. For PC2, it is same like, before, 192.169.69.12. Also, the default gateway is set to the interface of this router, which is 192.168.69.1. Moving on to the switch to show you the configuration of the IP. We'll show you this password and enable password again. So we type in show running config. Alright. So here you can see the IP address for this switch is set to 192.168.69.13, as you can see here, 13. Okay, let's move on to the console of this router. Show running config. Okay. So, like I stated earlier, the interface for this router, which is set to gigabit Ethernet 00, the one it is connected to, is the IP address is 192.168.69.1. So let's try to ping to show that it is working, that the IP address is set correctly. So let's try to ping from switch 0 to PC 0. Okay, let's try it. Right. Ping 192. The IP address for PC 0 is 192.168.69.10. 192.168.69.10. Let's see. You see? We got 80% in the first try. Let's try it again until we get 100%. 69.10. So this time we got 100% success rate, which means that we are able to send packets from this PC to this switch. I mean from this switch to PC. I'm sorry. So let's try from PC to a switch. So let's try this. From PC2 to switch. So we know that PC 0 switch 0 is 192.168.69.13. So we try. Nice. So we got 80% with 25% loss. Let's try it again. 168.69.13. Oh, I mistyped it. I'm sorry about it. Right. The reason it is unreachable because I accidentally typed in 169. So let's try it again. 168 being 192.168.69.13. Checking. Okay. Let's try it again. Aha. You see, it is 100%. So which means that we have successfully sent data from this PC to this switch. Okay, moving on to the second subnet, which is computer room number 2. For this subnet, this network ID is 192.168.15.0 with the interface of this router this router is set to 192.168.15.1. This will be the default gateway for this subnet for computer room 2. For this subnet, we are also using the subnet mask of 255.255.255.0, which is class C public, and it is same reason as why we use class C on the subnets before this. So for PC number 9, the IP address is 192.168.15.10. For PC 10, the IP address is 192.168.15.11. See here. And PC 11, the IP address is 192.168.15.12. For the switch, switch 1, the IP address is 192.168.15.13. And now I will show you the configuration of the IP address configuration. So as you can see here, it is set. This is PC9 here. PC9 192.168.15.10. Okay. PC11. It is 192.168.15.11. And the last one is PC11, which is set to 192.168.15.12. Also, the default gateway is set to the interface of this router, which is 192.168.15.1. To show you the IP address for the switch, you have to log in into this switch first. Show device config, show running config. Right, let's see the IP address. So as you can see here, this is the IP address for this switch. Like I stated earlier, the IP address is 192.168.15.13. And to show you about this router, let's do it again. Router enable show running config. Alright, okay. So for this router, the router's interface, which is gigabit Ethernet 0/0, the IP address is 192.168.15.1, as I said, as I showed you. So let's try to ping to prove that it is working, that the IP address is set up correctly. So let's try to ping from switch to PC12 to PC11. Right. Okay, let's try to ping 192.168.15.12. Let's try. So the success rate is 80%. Since it is the first time, let's try it again until we get 100%. 15.12. You see, it's 100%. So which means that both of these, the PC11's IP address is set up correctly. So let's try to check whether the switch is set up correctly. If we can ping, if we can ping from another PC to a switch. Let's try from PC10. Command prompt 192.168.15.11. I mean 13, since we are pinging the switch. But we can also try to ping other PCs as well. We will try after this. So 25% loss. Let's try it again until we get 100%. 192.168.15.13. Okay, we got 100%. So we successfully ping from PC10 to PC13 with 100%. So let's try to ping another PC. Let's try to ping PC9. Let's see if we can ping it. 192.168.15. Which is it? 10. Okay. So it is 100% success rate. Means PC10 is able to ping PC9. So the right hand side of this project will be covered by Amir, and that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Amir Hamzah bin Abdul Aziz, and I will be continuing on our presentation, which is IP addressing for our network system. So for my part, I will be explaining, focusing more on IP addresses on the right hand side of our network system. So without further ado, let's go to the first room, which is the common room, which is located on the right hand side here. The common room. Okay, and I already listed out all the IP addresses that we use inside this common room. So the first thing first, the subnet mask that we use inside this common room is 255.255.255.0, having an network address of 192.168.21.0. Here you can see that we installed a wireless router 0 having an IP address of 192.168.21.69, and this wireless router 0 is connected with two wireless devices, which is smartphone 0 and tablet PC 0. Both of them have an IP address of 192.168.21.100 for smartphone 0 and 192.168.21.101 for tablet PC0. The remaining end devices here is the PCs. The PCs here inside this common room, we assign it with 192.168.21.5 for PC7, .4 for PC5, and .2 for PC6. And for the switch, we assign it with an IP address of 192.168.21.3. This common room use a Class C private IP address, which range from 192.168.0.0 until 192.168.255.255. The reason why we use Class C private is because here you can see we use few end devices. So Class C private is suitable to be used. And for the default gateway, here I will show you the default gateway that was installed inside this common room. Alright, the default gateway for this common room, we assign it with 192.168.21.1. And as you can see, here is how we install the IP addresses for the PCs inside this common room. So here now I will be demonstrating on how we can transfer data inside with the same network, and I'll prove that the network inside this common room is reachable. So I will start with pinging PC7 with the IP address of 192.168.21.5. Alright, and then here we can observe the packet transfer, and now we can see that the packet transfer is successful. And when we continue, and now it reached the end, that means the data that the network inside this common room is reachable. Moving on to the second room, which is the multimedia room. This room is located to the at the bottom right. So here it is. So here I also already listed out all the IP addresses. So it is this multimedia room have a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0 and having a network address of 192.168.160.0. So here we installed 5 PCs having a network IP address of 192.168.16.15 for PC13, .14 for PC14, .13 for PC15, .11 for PC16, and .10 for PC17. The remaining end devices installed is wired end device, which is we use as projector, having an IP address of 192.168.16.12. And lastly, for the switch, we configure it with the same IP address with the common room, which is 192.168.21.3. So this multimedia room also use Class C private, which range from 192.168.00.0.0 until 192.168.255.255. And the reason is also the same with the common room, which is we only use few end devices. So for the default gateway for this multimedia room, we install it with an IP address of 192.168.16.1 for all PCs inside this multimedia room. And here is how we install the IP version 4 and subnet mask for these PCs. And now I will be demonstrating on how to ping these PCs to show that the data can be transferred inside this multimedia room. So sorry. So let's say we ping 192.168.16.14, and here we see we'll see the demo on how the packet move. And now we can see that the data transfer is successful, and we can say that the network inside this multimedia is reachable. I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Faishal, and now I'll be explaining on the routing part of our project. So here I'm going to show you the example of using a routing computer room 2 to multimedia room. So why we have routing is to enable us to send data from one subnet to another subnet. Here, for example, computer room 2 to send data to the multimedia room using routers. At first, it's not that very simple, as it's not as easy as sending data from one PC to another PC that is in the same subnet here. But when it's going to a different subnet, that is why we need a routing to enable us to do that. So first of all, to set up the routing, we need to go and configure the wires here. We have to configure the IP addresses of all the wires that are in the router that are connected. For example, here the switch to the router, and from the router to the other router. And to see that, we go into the CLI of the router 4 here. We can show what is the running configuration. And let's see, what did we do? Okay, so first of all, we can see here the interface, the gigabit internet 0/0, which is this one, I believe. Yes, 0/0. We have given the IP address of 192.168.15.1, which is the IP address of the first subnet here, the computer room 2. And now we connected it to the serial wire here, the serial cable, which is 0/0/0. And we can see here, down here, the interface here, 0/0/0. We give it the IP address of 209.165.000 and 17, which is the subnet of this area here, the connection between the routers. Okay, and now we do the same thing for the router 2. We give the IP address for the connections. Let's see here. Okay, let's check. Okay, inside here we use 0010, and we use gig 0/0, and we can see, where is it? Here, 0/100, we give it 209.165.200.20. Okay, which is according to plan. And also the gig 0/0 192.168.16.1, which is the subnet of the multimedia room, IP address of the multimedia room. So you can see we already given all the IP addresses, and now we move on to the part of the routing. The routing part. So first we look at the router here, the router that is at the multimedia room. We can actually see what is the IP route that we have done. As we can see here, there are a lot of IP routes, but the one that goes to the computer room is this one. The IP route 192.168.15.0. Why we put 0 is so we use the general IP address, so which means it can go to anywhere inside this subnet, to 5.5.0, and then Here we put what is the entryway, what is the entrance of the data, which is we use for the router 4 here, which is the computer room 2 router. We put the IP address of the connection here, for example here, 209.165.200.17, just according to plan. Same goes to for the router 4 here. We already give it the IP route here, 192.168.16.0, which means we want to go to this subnet here, the general IP address, so we can access all inside the subnet. And here is the gateway, the entry point, which is 209.165.200.20, according to plan. And with that, we set up all of those, and then we have to check to make sure all the computers here, we already put the default gateway, which means what is the default gateway, which is the where is it coming from, what is the router's IP address. You can see 192.168.16.1, which means the default gateway is this one, from this entry point here of the router and switch. So after we've done all of those, now we can finally see that we can send data from one subnet to another subnet. We try to use the simulation here. We try to ping 192.168.16.10. Now we try to move the simulation. As you can see, it moves from the switch to the router 4, and then router 2. Oops, there's an error there, but it's okay. Now it's already okay. The router 2 to the switch over here is already now moving to the different subnet, to the other subnet. And now it reached to computer with the .10. And let's see, can it return back to the computer room 2? Yes, it can, which means there is no errors, there's no problem, and the routing works. That's all.